The most common question I get is, should I set up an LLC for my real estate business? So you probably clicked on this video because you want to know whether or not you should open an LLC for your real estate business. My name is Andrew. I'm from Molai Law, where we help entrepreneurs just like you start your businesses without having to deal with the complicated legal forms. Our done-for-you service is backed by over 2009 5-star Google reviews, and we can help you start your business as well. I recently finished law school. I'm awaiting my bar results, and now I'm helping entrepreneurs just like you start your businesses. So you probably clicked on this video because you want to know whether or not you should set up an LLC for your real estate business. It's a good question because I'm sure that you have heard the horror stories of landlords getting sued by tenants and losing everything. You didn't spend years learning about real estate, growing your portfolio, learning how to be an effective landlord, only to lose it all to some person looking to game the system and you. However, LLCs are highly misunderstood in the real estate space. What works for one person may not work for you, and what works for you may not work for me. I want to be able to dive deeper so that you can better understand this. This video will be divided into 3 general chunks. First, I will talk about the personal liability protection under an LLC. Second, I will talk about the tax benefits under an LLC. And third, I will talk about the flexibility of owning an LLC for your real estate properties. First, let's go ahead and talk about the personal liability protection. The first benefit of having an LLC for your real estate business is limited liability protection. If you were to get sued, your liability or the damage to your wallet may be contained to the assets contained in the LLC, not everything else you own. If the LLC is set up right, if you get sued and lose, the creditors probably would not be able to take your personal house, car, or garnish your W-2 wages. One of the biggest benefits that LLCs offer investors is a limit to the personal vulnerability they will face if a lawsuit were raised against the property they own. For instance, if an investor personally owns a property, they would be named in the lawsuit, leaving their personal assets vulnerable in the leading proceedings of the case. However, if the property is owned by an LLC, investors can reduce their personal liability in a lawsuit instead of having to defend their personal assets. The liability of the case would fall on the LLC, creating a protective barrier between the investor and their personal property. However, there are ways a judge may pierce the protection of an LLC and go after those things if every I was not dotted and every T was not crossed. You may lose that personal liability protection if your LLC is not properly set up. Although forming a real estate LLC can provide an assortment of benefits, including liability protection, it can also be denied if mishandled. An LLC is simply the shell of a corporate structure, which means it will not be enough to avoid personal liability. For those that engage in fraudulent activity or most commonly commingling personal and business funds, this corporate shield can be shattered, leaving you vulnerable to liability. By commingling funds, it makes it extremely hard to prove that your LLC is in fact a separate entity from you. That said, the importance of separating business and personal finances is second to none, as this small sidestep can breach the conditions of a real estate LLC. Not only should rental properties be placed under an LLC, but each property in a respective portfolio should have its own separate LLC. Not only will filing as an LLC award investors such as yourself with great tax benefits and asset protection, but each subsequent LLC will provide another layer of protection. Setting up an LLC for each property will insulate them from each other, effectively reducing risk. The second benefit is tax efficiency. The LLC is fairly easy to handle during tax time, especially if it is a single member LLC, which means you own it or you and your spouse own it. LLCs are known as a pass-through entity, which means the income and expenses flow magically through the LLC and are reported and paid by each individual member on their personal income statement. Real estate companies structured under an LLC are allowed to buy real estate. In fact, LLCs afford investors one of the most versatile vehicles to shelter their taxes and protect their assets. With the help of an LLC, savvy business owners may even be allowed to keep more of the money they make when it comes time to file their taxes. There is no corporate tax, a fee corporations have to pay. This can definitely make taxes easier and less expensive than, say, a C Corp. While a single member LLC does not require its own business tax returns, a multi-member LLC with partners does. Don't make that mistake. The third benefit is operational flexibility. An LLC is fairly flexible in terms of running. You don't need thousands of documents. You don't need a bunch of stock issued. It is fairly easy to set up. Fairly inexpensive depending on where you're at, and so it's easy to see how an LLC may be advantageous to a real estate investor. Because real estate LLCs offer operational flexibility, you will want to create an operating agreement. Essentially, an operating agreement states how the business is divided among members and how decisions will be made with the company. Further, it can also describe what would happen in the event one member decided to leave the company. One of the biggest perks of starting an LLC is that it can offer protection from several negative situations. The same logic applies to an operating agreement. It protects business members by anticipating possible scenarios that could harm the business structure. Let's just say a tenant slips on the stairs and breaks their hip. The tenant decides to sue the landlord for neglect and the court sides with the tenant. For whatever reason, let's say your insurance doesn't cover all the legal penalties, and you, the owner, are required to pay $500,000 out of pocket to the tenant. Ouch. Well, if you own the property without an LLC, the tenant can have your wages garnished and force you to sell all of your properties and drive you to bankruptcy, probably end up eating cold beans out of a can while pigeons sit on your shoulder. It's not a fun place to be. On the other hand, if the owner of that property, Main Street Investment LLC, then the LLC is the owner getting sued. The courts could make you sell that property, but they likely make you sell the other properties owned by other LLCs. They won't take your primary residence. You won't be eating cold beans. Forming a real estate LLC is one of the most important steps an investor can undertake when getting started. It not only protects you and your personal assets, but it allows you to reap the tax benefits that you rightfully deserve. While the ability to generate sales and build your business is crucial to success, it is equally, if not more important, to keep it protected at all costs. Investors should remember this act pertains to not just your business, but your livelihood as well. To sum it all up, as a real estate investor, you're going to want to start an LLC to protect yourself, to protect your personal assets, and to benefit from those tax benefits as well as the operational flexibility that LLCs offer. If you have any questions about anything that I talked about today, please make sure you hit the link in the description box below to schedule your free consultation. Also, please make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. It's time to invest in yourself. It's time to rise.